Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is me again, Insane Gorilla, and welcome back to What If Belle Was a New Species. This will be the final one. I will let you know that I deeply respect all of you guys for all the support for this video. Well, for the 3 videos I've put up for this. But I will be finishing it up here, so please forgive me. Anyway, when we last left off, Belle Crenell recently had water thrown over his head by Eyes Wallenstein. And, well, Belle decides to get his own back on her. Flying away and getting a bucket of water as, well, Eyes continues giggling as she realizes, when she opens her eyes, to see that Belle is not there. Until she turns around to see Belle behind her with a bucket of water, as he says, "Eyes Wallenstein, it is your turn." And this should sort of give you a bit of a hint saying that I did not need you to throw a bucket of water over my head to wake me up. As far as Wallenstein's own head, in Eyes Wallenstein's head, she just simply says, "Shit." Running. She runs, followed quickly by Belle, which she forgot he can fly. So he lands in front of her and throws the bucket of water at her. Well, the contents of the bucket at her, as it, well, misses her and hits Bet instead. As Bet sort of like gets soaked, he really is not impressed. Or really is really not happy. As he says, "You little shit." As Belle says, "Sorry, I was aiming at Eyes, not you. You just happened to stand in the way, stand at the back, I'm afraid." As Belle sorts out him for a bit, Goddess Hestia turns up with, well, Hermes. Hermes still tricking Belle to follow him to peep on the girls as they have a bath and all that. And, well, Hermes' plan backfires as Belle pushes him instead of getting pushed himself. Hermes' assistant sort of screams and says, "Hermes, you massive pervert." Eyes looks up to see Belle, well, sort of shake his head as he flies off. Well, just flies off, leaving quite a few feathers behind. As we all know, Belle has the unfortunate habit of leaving feathers behind, as I've explained in the last 2 videos. So Eyes actually picks up quite a few of the feathers and sort of puts a few of them on her sheath and decides to still finish off having her bath, then gets dried up, then dries herself off and puts her clothes back on. as she walks towards Belle. As she goes up to him, Belle does sort of know what she's going to say, and he says, "Before you ask, Eyes, it was Hermes' idea. I quickly picked up on what he was going to try and do, so I decided to push him instead. I don't particularly want to be punched or hell, even stabbed by all the ladies." As I said, yeah, Leon and Liana would not really do that to you. They'll just sort of like laugh and say, "Really?" Yeah, Spell turns around and says, "And what would you really say?" No, wait. Hold off on that. Before you even speak, Eyes, I already know what you're going to say. Remember, I have the unfortunate habit of reading people's minds before they say anything. So, but yeah, you would. As Eyes says, we need to find a way for you to stop reading people's minds. I like to keep my thoughts private, if you don't mind. As Belle says, "Oh, you mean like with the feathers? Are you putting them on your sheath?" Yeah, I quickly picked up on that as well. As Eyes sort of just lightly blushes, saying, "Yeah, why not? You molt them all the time anyway, so might as well just put the feathers to good use." As Bill just agrees, saying, "Yeah, pretty much." Goddess Hestia gets kidnapped again, as she does in canon, by that one group. And with Belle flying, he skips over all the people who are having a fight. Well, who are picking on him for a fight. And he completely demolishes that one guy, who then has the mad respect for Belle. Then Goliath turns up. Oh boy. But this time it's not one Goliath, it's two. And everybody says that there's only supposed to be one Goliath, not two. As everybody, relatively like in canon, gets rid of the first one with somebody else stabbing the stone and twisting it, or twisting their blade within the stone to truly kill the Goliath. But the second one, though, oh boy. The same thing happens to Bell in canon with his wings. It's kind of worse. Because when Goliath actually fires at Bell, it damages Bell's wings once again to a worse state, to an even worse state. As Makoto's captain or vice captain jumps in the way with a shield, as Goliath swings his hand, causing the vice captain of Makoto's group to be severely injured, but also throwing Bell quite literally through trees. This time, Goddess Hestia doesn't find him. Eyes does. Eyes does, followed by Lily, who was trying to find Belle anyway. As Lily turns up, she sees Eyes Wallenstein have Belle in her arms as she's trying to shake Belle awake. As Lily pushes her off, saying, "You can't just simply shake Master Belle awake, especially after something like that." As Lily checks his pulse to see that his pulse is very, very shallow. As she says, "Come on, Master Belle, wake up." As eventually Goddess Hestia turns up. The same thing happens in canon, but with eyes there this time. As Belle has the images going through his memories going through his head, he gets up. And, well, surprises Eyes, Hestia, and, well, Lily, as, well, the same thing happens in canon with Wealth, Nicolto, and the others, all fighting Goliath. I failed to mention that part. As we go back Belle as he gets up. Everybody's happy that he's up and moving again. As Hestia says, "Belle, you need to rest. You need to get a few minutes rest." As Belle does not answer and moves on, as in walking. Eyes tries to stop him, but the swords turn up. The swords turn up again. As she sees the swords, as the two lower wings of Belle's two lower wings on the left and right start having a golden colour go across the top, and it slowly spreads downwards. Eyes is very concerned, along with Lily and Hestia, as the halo turns up again. And Belle's armor changes. It goes from the ragged state to a silverish golden colour. As his whole body gets covered in armour, as gongs could be heard, which catches Goliath's attention, as it does everybody else. As the gongs get silent, get exponentially louder, as Belle's wings start reforming themselves, as they flare up, as a goldish reddish colour starts emanating from the wings. As Lily says, it looks like the wings are catching on fire. As Belle's eyes go from a goldy yellowish colour to a fiery yellowish red colour, as he flies straight up into Goliath's face, cutting his entire head off, then swiping all the way down to where the stone was, making Goliath go poof once again. Everybody's happy to see Bells up again. Has eyes, Wallenstein sort of clutches her chest where her heart is. As well, she's at the back, so nobody can really see her. As Belle, as well, Hestia, Lily, Wealth, Colto, and the others all see if Belle's alright. As he starts hovering upwards, Hermes still says Zeus, still gives the speech to Zeus and that about his grandson. As well, he vanishes, then reappears next to Eyes Wallenstein without anybody noticing, including her. As her heart starts beating rapidly. As Belle sort of says something to her before he collapses, saying, "You like him, don't you? You think about him. You want to be just like him. Well, he's a new species, so you are kind of curious, right?" As Eyes just nods up and down, well, nods her head up and down. As Belle says, "Good. Because you'll find out someday." As she says, "Is that really you, Belle, or is that somebody just talking through you?" As Belle just says, "Oh, it's me. But I won't remember any of this. But I'm sure you will." As he twists Eyes' head towards his, as he pulls her in close and kisses her on the forehead, which makes Eyes tense up majorly as Belle falls to the ground, unconscious, as everything goes back to it the way it was. Everybody celebrates and heads back to the surface. Then the problems with well, the problem with the Apollo familiar happens. And there's a slight problem with Eyes this time. After what Belle gave Eyes, that little kiss on the forehead, he does not know the far reaching, well, consequences of that. As in Belle's mind once again, because he's still out cold for a short while, as in his mind he still sees the fight with the Goliath, but also what he did to Eyes. As he can see, well, sense her now. Sense her emotions and what she's truly feeling. But also can see that she has fallen slightly ill. It's not due to her not eating well. Loki has tried everything, as Eyes is still bedridden. as she cannot move. Eventually, Eyes manages to move as Belle makes a sudden appearance in the Loki familiar, specifically Eyes' room. And she sort of gets up and says, Belle, what are you doing here? As Belle says, I don't have much time to explain before I go back, okay? I can sense what's going on with you. I know that you've been sick. I know that Loki's tried everything, but I can also sense all your feelings. What you are experiencing is something completely new. I will not be surprised if me being a new species will evidently come up with consequences. As I said, I don't really remember what happened in the dungeon. All I remember is fighting Goliath. And that's it. But after fighting Goliath, I started sensing a power coming from you, Eyes. And it's very similar to mine. As he asks her to turn around, as he can look at her back. As Eyes sort of covers, saying, You know I am naked right now. As Belle says, just turn around so I can have a look at your back quickly. It'll only take a few seconds. As Eyes does turn around, just saying, don't do anything perverted. As Belle's eyes just roll in the back of his skull, saying, I'm not. As he sort of feels around Eyes' back, as she tenses up, as her face goes bright red. As eventually Belle hits a lump and says, Weird. As he feels across to the left, from the right side to the left, feeling another bump. Then going down a bit, feeling another. And then goes over to the right side again, to feel another. As Belle says, Eyes, I have a feeling you're starting to grow wings. Like I do. As Eyes turns around very rapidly, as she lets go of the covers as the covers fall down. Sort of making Belle cover his eyes pretty quick. As Eyes grabs him saying, What do you mean I'm growing wings? Am I growing wings like yours? As Belle says, I will tell you once you cover yourself again. As Eyes looks down, sort of like shrieking and putting something over her. As Goddess Loki, Bet, and the two Amazons, along with the guy who's 40 years old but looks like a child still, as they all burst in along with the elf, along with the dwarf, that says, What's wrong? As they see Belle. As Loki says, What the hell is a Hestia familiar member doing here? And more importantly, it's Belle Cronell. So what are you doing here, boy? As Belle says, Shut up and listen, Loki. As I explain the rest to Eyes. As he continues explaining, saying, Eyes, due to me being a new species, I may have powers that are unknown even to myself. I can't remember much, but I do remember me giving you a kiss on the forehead. As Loki sort of says, "What? No way!" As the Amazons sort of sigh, saying, "Oh, I's got the boy." As he continues saying, "And that's most probably why you're starting to grow." Well, as you can most probably tell behind, well, tell what I have always been trying to avoid using. My wings. As Loki and the others sort of look at each other saying, "Huh? Wings?" As Belle says, "Yes." Eyes Wallenstein is starting to grow two pairs of wings. Like I do. Like me. But I've already got mine and they're fully grown. As Eyes asks a question saying, "Okay, but what does that do with you giving me a kiss when we were down in the dungeon after the Goliath attack?" And Spell just sort of slaps himself in the face palms, saying, "Eyes, I just explained to you what I said. I gave you a kiss, so that gave you that had a far-reaching consequence. AKA, you're now going to be a bit like me. You're going to have wings. That means you're going to have to also learn on how to use them. On how also not to start flying everywhere." As Loki says, "I'm going to have a word with Hestia about this. Hell, even all the gods." As she has a letter come through about her being invited to a banquet well, with Apollo. And this is after the pronunciation of the war between Hestia and Apollo. As she says, "Oh, great. Now Apollo's got a banquet going on. I assume this is to do with the war between you and him, Belle." As Belle says, "Most probably. And I think I may know why he wants to start a war. It's due to me being a new species, and he's most probably, well, in love with my wings, as he's trying to most probably have this war so he can win to get me." As as Loki says, "Loving hells. Okay, this is going to be a problem." As Loki says, "Eyes, I'm going to take you with me, so if you're feeling up to it, come along." As Belle sort of vanishes, saying, "I'll most probably have to go with Goddess Hestia, because I'm, her only child of her familiar, basically. So I gotta get going." As he vanishes, Eyes still having a mad blush on her face. As Loki says, "What else did he do to you?" Or, "What did he do to you, Eyes?" As Eyes sort of says, well, I allowed him to touch my back to see if something was on my back, as he thought what there was, and it turns out there were. As Loki says, only a god should do that to their own familiar members, not other familiar members touching each other up like this. As, well, they go to the banquet. Eyes still going to see Belle, and this takes a few days for the banquet anyway, because they had to set everything up. So Eyes' wings have started to appear. They're small, but they're sort of baby wings. But but people can still see that she's starting to grow wings herself. As well, Belle asks her for a dance without Hermes sort of egging him on or putting those two together. As Loki and Hestia are sort of bickering between themselves, as Loki tells Hestia what's happening to Eyes due to what Belle did. And they hear a round of applause saying it's the Winged Warrior and the Sword Princess having a dance as they look over and freak out. Because a lot of people sort of like saying these two are so cute together. Yes, well, this is where Freya turns up. And sort of does the same thing to Belle, where she sort of pats him on the cheek, which makes him a little bit confused, getting the same facial reaction out of him, as usual. But she does the same thing to Eyes as well, saying that both of you are very interesting. Then Apollo turns up. He gives the whole thing about what the war arc's going to be about, what this whole thing's going to be about, and it's just going to be a war game. And the prize is Belle Crenell, and whoever wins takes Belle. And then he says the next will be Eyes Wallenstein, because I can see that she's starting to grow wings as well. As Loki sort of says, "Oh hell no, you're not taking anyone from my familiar." As Eyes says, "Fine. You want me? You're going to have to fight the Hestia familiar." As she asks her goddess Loki if she can join the Hestia familiar for the war game. As Loki just sighs and says, "Fine, you can join the Hestia for the war game, but only for the war game." As they get Lily back from her familiar, which she then fully joins the Hestia familiar, and Wolf Crozo as well, as he joins them, as they all see Eyes Wallenstein with Belle, as she sort of holds on the Belle's t-shirt for a bit, as she sort of tugs him, saying, "Belle, can I quickly have a word?" As Belle says, "Sure." As they go off around the corner for a bit, as she says, "I'm sorry, but I'm too nervous about this. You see, you have the wings, you have the strength in them to lift yourself up. Me, I've only got small wings." As Belle just pats her on the head, saying, "Look, Eyes, your wings are going to grow as well. It's going to take a little while, but they'll grow. You may have small wings right now, but wait until they get bigger. Then you'll wish that, well, then you'll have enough feathers to make pictures out of like you did with the your sword and my feathers. As Eyes looks down to see her sword, well, her scabbard or a sheath with her sword in it, along with a few outlines of Belle's feathers. As she just says, I know, but as Belle starts walking off a bit, well, starts to turn around, she pulls him back and kisses him on the cheek, saying, that's payback from the dungeon, okay? As Belle blushes, saying, right, okay. And yes, I'm doing that because this is the last part. So they go off to the war, which is in the same location. They get Ryu and Makoto, but this time Makoto doesn't do her whole gravity thing. Because she has Eyes with her. As Lily opens the gate where Belle and Crozo are, as Belle pats her on the head, saying, well done, Lily. As he grabs hold of Wealth, saying, hold on for a bit, Wealth. We're going flying for a bit. As Wealth says, never been flying before, so this should be fun. As Belle just takes off. And they land on the bridge where Daphne and that other woman was. As Daphne sort of runs off. As the mages try to do a spell, Wealth does the spell that causes Ignis Fetus, that causes all their magic to go kaboom. As Belle runs past, and, well, ends up beneath where the vice captain, well, the captain of the Apollo Familiar, as he destroys the entire tower, part of where they all are, and continues having the fight with him. The same thing happens in canon, where Daphne holds Belle still, while that one man makes his spell. Lily rugby tackles Daphne as Belle flies straight up into the sky as the magic spell misses. As Belle just flies back down and drop kicks him. Eventually, Eyes is wing after the whole war arc. Apollo gives Hestia his mansion, as eventually, after a few years, the whole thing happens. Well, after a few weeks, the whole thing happens with the in the red light district. So they get Orihime, or yeah, Haruhime. She likes Belle, but not too much. As unlike in canon, they get another member, Eyes Wallenstein, and she formally requests Loki to release her from her familiar, as she wants to join the Hestia familiar to learn on how to use her wings when they fully manifest. Loki, being aggravated, says, okay, fine. But with the way I's feelings were for Belle, it was only a matter of time. As eventually, again, after a few years now, I's wings fully develop. And she starts learning on how to use them properly, with Belle as her mentor. Now there are two people with wings, as Eyes has become a part of the new species herself. Nobody knows how she became that, apart from the Loki familiar. And she's asked the Loki familiar to keep it all a secret and keep it away from all other gods. As Loki says, okay, fine, when are you coming back? As she says, never, unfortunately. I'm never coming back because I'm still learning. I've only just started to learn on how to use my wings properly. Belle said it's going to take years for me to learn, so I'm never going to be able to come back. Not unless you want me to be useless in the battlefield. As Loki just sort of sighs and says, it's because you have feelings for the boy, don't you? Eyes doesn't say anything. As Loki just says, in the end, just says, fine. You can be with your boyfriend then. Which Eyes gets very flustered by. Eventually, Eyes finally finishes learning on how to use her wings, unlocking her own sort of state like Belle does. As eventually, Eyes finally says, Belle, I've fallen in love with you. As Belle says, I know, and I, you. As both of them started dating, which made Hestia a bit jealous, along with Lily and all the other girls, who Belle has known, got to know, in his familiar and some from Loki's familiar. As eventually those two get married. And, well, after a few years, there's a new member to the Hestia familiar. As Eyes says, what should we call our daughter? Yes, both of them got married and had a kid. Don't like it? Deal with it. As as Belle says, I don't know. What do you think we should call her? As Eyes says, no. How about Aina? Going by the name of Belle's venture director or woman who from the bank. As he says, why not? I think she'll be happy that somebody is named after her. As they lived happily ever after. Well, happily for a few months until, well, season 3, which I am not covering, by the way, because this is the last one I'm going to be doing of Belle Cornell. I am doing a new Belle What If. What if Belle was the Witch King from the Lord of the Rings? I will be adding Lord of the Rings people, such as Aragorn, Gandalf, and Legolas. Hell, even Gimli. And if you guys haven't noticed already, I've started a Mandalorian one. And in the third part that I'm also going to upload today, because I finished it all last night, the character, well, the girl, if you guys have seen the image of her, the girl is actually a character from Shadow of War. Mordor, Shadow of War. Play the game, you'll understand who I'm talking about. Because her character sort of deserves a bit of justice. Because she's boring and flat. So I might as well just perk her up a bit. So yeah, if you guys want me to do What If Belle Was the Witch King, I will do it. Because I think having Belle as a bit of a villain would prove a lot more interesting. But if you guys want me to, I can make Belle an elf. An elf, also from Lord of the Rings. I could either make him Sauron, or I can have him as Elrond, half elven. The choice is entirely up to you guys. I don't mind. You guys can choose. I'm leaving this all up to you. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys want me to do, and I will do it. Au revoir, my dear friends.